Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome back. It's been a long time. So long I didn't even change the date. Dang it. Terrible. So it's actually 2024. So for those of you who paid attention, we've skipped a year, but we're back. And it's been a while, but we're back here. And thanks, Eric, for joining me.
Yeah, glad to be here. It's been a while since we've done this together, too.
Yep, for sure. We've had a lot of other hosts on, but we're back and got some of our tried and true supporters, David and Peter, already in the chat. Thanks for joining us, guys. So let's get on with the show. First of all, let's just thank our sponsors, Order Solutions. Without them, we wouldn't be here at all. So thanks again to the makers of ColdBox, CommandBox, ForgeBox, TestBox, and all your other boxes out there. A few ways you can say thanks back to Orders is buy tickets to our workshop at Into the Box in CF Summit East, or if you can't make that in DC in April, we actually have Into the Box in Washington, D.C. in May. So we've got lots of ways you guys can come and support us there. But they can also like and subscribe to YouTube, right, Eric?
That's right. You can also start and fork our repos on GitHub. There's a nifty CommandBox GitHub module that you can use to do that. Subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. If you leave us a review and let us know, we'll read it here on the show. We should say a positive review. Keep the language nice. Yep. You can sign up for a free or paid account on CFCast, which is releasing new content regularly. Visit the Box Life store for some awesome swag that you can rep at these upcoming events in DC and over across the pond at CF Camp. Or you can buy one of Order's books, 102 ColdBox Quick Tips and Tricks on Gumroad or Amazon, and learn modern Cold Fusion in 100 minutes, 100 plus minutes.
Yep, lots
Hedging
of cool ways
there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, trying to give you guys lots of different ways to support us, and obviously pull requests, issues filed, everything helps, and these things definitely go a long way to supporting Orders and helping us do all the cool things we like to do to help the community. Okay, well, next up, we want to thank our Patreon supporters, and this word of the week this time is staunch, our staunch, loyal Patreon supporters. Right now we have 38 Patreons, and you can go find out more at patreon.com/ordersolutions. So we've got a lot of cool different ways you can support us, and we appreciate everything. It all helps. Okay, so next up, let's jump into our news and announcements, and we got a few. So we want to start off with the ColdBox workshop at Adobe CF Summit East, as we mentioned just there. So it's basically a deep dive into ColdBox 7.2, and you'll have Luis Majano personally training it. It's going to be the 25th and the 26th of 2024, right after Adobe CF Summit East. So if you guys are using ColdBox, there's a lot of great stuff in ColdBox 7, and you want to get up to speed on that. That's a great way to do it. And CF Summit East is a great one-day free workshop for everyone in DC. So they have a lot of good speakers there and everything. So stay 2 more days, enjoy DC, and join the workshop. So I think we got some early bird pricing still available, right, Eric?
We do. Also, I'm looking, do we have a link for CF Summit East 2024? I am not finding it on Adobe's website anywhere.
Yeah, well, last time I looked, I found it. It was from 2023. So I was like, wait a minute, did I get the wrong date? So I'm not sure if it's been officially announced or not, but we've already got that in there. So there must be something under the covers. So yeah, but I don't have the records. Yeah, it was hard to find on their site too. So sometimes Adobe's like that. They'll announce stuff out before us. They'll invite us to speak at things, and then later on, marketing will actually publish it. So, but yeah, so.
So the comeback, there is early bird pricing available until March 1st. You can grab a ticket for $499. After that, until April, it's going to be $699. So limited seats available. So make sure to jump on that if you're going to be in the area and get taught by the creator himself. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry.
No, but
I
it, it
regret it
it
already.
it doesn't make a big difference. I mean, people do like to, have Luis training them. Sometimes it's just me, and they're like, "Where's Luis?" I'm like, "Sorry, guys, he'll be here soon." No, but I mean, he knows everything that's going into the new 7, and there's a lot of cool stuff in 7 as well. Some big changes. We're really pushing language features forward. Like delegates is a big one that you'll hear in other languages, and now we can do that inside of CodeBox and other great stuff. So, yeah, definitely check that out.
and and yeah, you want this 2 days to go on this. Every time we add features to Cold Box, I'm just thinking this workshop has to get longer. We like we can fit the basics into a day for sure, but there's so many cool things that we want to show off. So
Yep. Yeah, for sure. We definitely can jam it into one day, but you get so much more out of it when you're able to, take your time and you really work along the code. And that's why there's a small number on the cap. Because if we have too many people, we can't give you the, attention you need to keep up with the fast bits and, dive into the problems or those weird edge cases that you might have in your code. So the 2-day workshop is definitely a big plus. So, more to come. We actually have into the box updates as well. So it's been a little while since the conference. I'm going to share my screen if you want to tell us about some of the cool stuff we announced, Eric.
yeah, so I hope this matches up with what you're looking at since I can't see your screen. But we got some workshops announced, just a few. There's going to be one, maybe two more. But you can see right now we have reactive front ends with CFML, CBWire, and Alpine JS. Bare metal to the cloud, migrating legacy applications to Amazon Web Services, and ColdBox 7 Unleashed.
Yep. So these
So
are 1-day workshops. So again, if you're wanting a deeper dive, the DC one is a 2-day workshop, and Luis will cover all the same material, just a little bit quicker time to get it in 1 day here in this ColdBox 7 Unleashed. But I'm really excited to see John and Daniel's one. I know they've been doing a lot of work with clients, migrating tons and tons of people and to the cloud legacy. And John does some interesting stuff with all that Elasticsearch and the container stuff and Fargate. And so if you guys are looking for a way to get to the cloud, that's a great workshop. He's built on top of the previous one, which is usually our most well attended, the Docker stuff. This is, going one step further and really diving into the AWS stuff. So if you're looking at AWS, this is even better for you.
yeah, and if there's a workshop not there that you would like, reach out to us. Let us know. Again, we have room for one, maybe two more. So let us know which one you would like to attend.
Yep, for sure. And then obviously we have some speakers announced. So you might see some faces here that you recognize and maybe a couple that you don't. Excuse me. So Annette Liskey, she presented at CF Summit last year, and it was really good to see her Rulebox presentation. So she's going to be there. We got some other new faces too. So Felicia's going to be speaking. We got some of the ones we haven't seen for a while. Kurt Gratz was back with us last year, and did Charlie Earhart, and obviously you got a lot of the Otis crew as well. Brad is not on there, but don't worry, he will be speaking. We can't get Brad not to speak, but he will be there too. But some other new faces too. So Vinay and Irvin, and then Jacob Beers as well. He's a new employee at Otis, and so he'll be speaking. But a lot of great speakers here, and we are announcing a few more. We're just trying to finalize and make sure everyone can actually attend. So we'll be getting more and more out there. But check that out. Now that you've seen those, hopefully there's more reason to come, that you've seen who's actually going to be there, who's speaking.
If you toggle to the days, we also can see the sessions that some of these people are speaking at. So again, this isn't the exhaustive list. There's additional sessions to be announced, but you can see a few what's coming up.
Sorry, I did see that. I missed the day at the top here. So yeah, so you can see they're starting to flush them out as well. I know that we have additional sessions coming soon, as it says there, and we have a couple of last minute announcements. We're trying to get a couple of sponsor ones from some special people. So we're definitely going to be adding some good content in there. And you see we have like little networking time. We're trying to get a little more space between the sessions now too, to make it better for everybody. So hopefully you guys can make it. And again, new location. We're not in Texas this time. Going to be in DC. So we'll tell you a little bit more during the conference section, but that was a big one there. Another conference though, CF Camp is back this year, so
That's
they've
right.
released the call for speakers. So you guys have got a little bit of time. The call for speakers closes March 17th. So they're really excited with how many people came back out after the pandemic last year. 2023 was the first one since the pandemic, and they got a lot of people there, and it was a good turnout, and so they're wanting to step it up, and so we're going to be doing a lot of topics in their call for speakers for recommendations. So let me jump here to my screen again. Just scroll down, and they talked a little bit about last year and everything, but these are encouraged topics for submission. So obviously lots of core CFML stuff. So talking about frameworks and legacy migration and modularity, etc. And some Docker migrating to clouds, etc. A lot of things you think. But they also encourage a lot of things about databases and front ends and infrastructure, and sort of all the things adjacent to it, as well as business and marketing. So, if you maybe, code adjacent with some of your talks, maybe you can find a hole in here because they are looking for a lot of things, not just, the traditional code presentations that we always see. So CFCamp does have a variety, and you've been to CFCamp before, right, Eric?
Yeah, I've been twice. I was able to go last year. Great conference. This one's in the same location as it was before, so just outside the Munich airport. And yeah, it's a great one. I know there's lots of people at Ordis that want to try to get out there this year, so we will see how many we can fit.
Yep, for sure. A lot of things going on. And then
Now
next up,
we
sorry.
had a quick question in the chat from David Bellinger about pre-registrants getting into these workshops. So for any of you that have bought a blind ticket, reach out to us. There's a way to switch that ticket over to one that includes a workshop, and we can get you all sorted out on that. Or if you head over, and we'll put the link in the show notes, to Eventbrite, you're able to get a workshop ticket. You're not choosing the workshop yet because we haven't announced them all, but that guarantees that you're going to have a seat, and we'll give you a choice.
Yeah, and I think the blind tickets might have been the all access pass, which includes a workshop. So if you let us know, David, we'll make sure you're on the list. But yeah, as soon as we get those all listed in Eventbrite, we can update yours to that. But don't worry, we'll get you into the one you want to get to, because Dave was one of those blind purchases, and so it's good to see some people were like, I'm going no matter what. I don't care who's speaking, whatever you have, I'm going to be there. And so it's great to have you support us. So thanks, David. Okay. So next up, we've had a quiet few months from Ben Adele, and this is why. He
We got a
released,
feature flags book.
yeah. So you guys listen to the Working Code podcast. He's been talking about it for a while, and he has written and released his feature flags book. So he has sort of like half the book is about feature flags, and sort of half the book is more of his like experience and his opinions, and how they deliver the value. And so it's a really good book. I know a couple of people in Otis have already purchased it, and and you see a couple of sayings here as well. So people think it's really good, and feature flags are great. And once you get your head around what they are, they're not just if statements like everybody thinks. There's a lot more power to them. And Ben explains that in here too. And as he says, it's transforming your product development workflow. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he hypes it up, but the hype is real. I remember, hearing and reading Ben's blog posts and being like, yeah, feature flags, sure. And when we finally adopted them, it's so freeing to be able to put those in, and be able to switch who's using your product. If there's a problem, to be able to go back to the way it was without having to do a massive code push again. So there's some great things there. And this book is going to be awesome for anybody wanting to jump into feature flags.
Yeah, and it's very cool. I like the fact that you can sort of stage your rollouts too, because a lot of the products, depending on which feature flag product you're using, launch darkly, but there's also like the Unleashed SDK. There's other ones out there too, but they allow you to sort of say, okay, I want just the people from my company that have an email address ends on this to be able to see it, or I want 10% of this criteria to be able to see it, and you can increase that number so you can basically roll it out. So hopefully you guys will see the benefit of using them and find a good place for them too. And again, you don't have to use launch darkly, which I've heard is a little bit more expensive, but they do have a few extra features than some of the other tools. So, find the one that works for you, and yeah, definitely get the book a read and support another CFMLer. But don't worry, since he's finished his book now, we've got lots of blog posts to make up for the quiet time from Ben. So you'll see in the Ben corner of the blogs today. So, but that sort of wraps up our news and announcements. Next up, though, we have lots of new releases and updates. It's been a little while, so you want to give us a sneak peek, because the next one is actually going to be our ForgeBox module of the week too. So
yeah, I can take you through these two new updates. We first have the ColdBox debugger. This is version 4.2, and the big headline feature of this is for me hyper request tracking. Hyper is a HTTP library that wraps CF-HTTP, but can also wrap other providers, underlying Java providers, bolt HTTP by Pete Freitag, any of those. And this now will show all of your hyper requests and responses inside one of these collector panels. You can also use Lucy SQL listeners in Lucy 6 to be able to get every query that's going through there. You could already do that with QB, but this now is at the engine level. And ways to generate heap dumps to look at your memory output, help to find any memory leaks that you may have. So awesome stuff. CB debugger, I feel like needs a new name, because it's so much more. It's becoming kind of a mini, application performance monitoring solution. So
it really is. I mean, just they've improved all the formatting for the JSON, the SQL. They've got a revamped request doc. Yeah, I mean, the fact you can jump in and look at your slow queries now, I mean, it really does a lot of the things that you use on a regular basis from some of those monitoring tools. I mean, and yeah, we just keep adding more and more. And in the module of the week, we'll go through a list of some of the features just in the 4.0 release, and there was more in the 3. Series. So lots of cool stuff in there, and it is really neat. I mean, it's great for those API responses to be able to actually see them, even though you're not tracking it. And you can add your own timers now, and as Scott says, it's cool how easy it is to add your own metrics to it. So you can add your own timers and metrics, and it's pretty cool. So highly recommend that.
we also had a release of CB Wire version 3.2. Grant's been just crushing it on this, and I don't know if this is the first, but I wanted to call out, he has a couple features in this release contributed by the community, and that's always a magical thing when the community comes together and brings in great new features. So thanks in this case to Michael Rigsby, who contributed a few of these features. So CBWire now can dispatch browser events, custom browser events that you can listen to in JavaScript. Some nice improvements to auto-populating data properties and more module-aware components, as well as some enhanced template functionality. So great release. CBWire 3.2 keeps trucking along.
Yep, met Michael at the last CF Summit. We had a workshop and met Michael there. It was great to spend some time with him, and yeah, he's got some cool ideas and does some interesting things. So good to see him contributing to that project. CBY is very cool. Grant's done some great stuff there. Okay, webinars, meetups, and workshops. We have one coming up this week. So on the 25th, we have one from Charlie and the online CF meetup, the many capabilities of the CF package management and CFPM. So that's, in case you didn't know, Adobe CF 2021 added a new tool called CFPM, which is the Cold Fusion package manager. So it helps you install the modules needed for Adobe Cold Fusion CF 2021 and 2023. And if you guys want to learn more about it, you can there. But he's also been very busy because he's released, 4 or 5 other talks the last month. And I'm not sure if we had all the links, so we got them all in here. So on January 18th, he did updating the Java underlying Cold Fusion, considering or doing it, because I know there's some Java updates that came out recently, so he's talking about that. And then we also have installing CF 2023, choices, challenges, and solutions. And then there's another one, migrating apps to Cold Fusion 2023 from earlier versions. So I'm sure that was a really popular one because everyone's migrating up. And so a lot of great content that Charlie's been releasing. I know for a long time he's been wanting to get more people speaking. So he's like, okay, I'll do it. So he's been rolling out quite a few sessions. So if you want some more content, Charlie's got some there. And again, Thursday this week is the new one on the Cold Fusion Package Manager.
All right. Should we talk about some conferences and trainings coming up?
Yep, we touched on a few of them, but yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Well, Into the Box, located at Optica in Washington, D.C. I believe that's the same location as our training for CF Summit East as well. So May 15th through the 17th, you can still get your blind tickets, as I guess they're like semi-blind now because you know a little bit of what's coming.
Yeah, I think they were through the end of the year, so I think they might be gone now.
Ooh, I missed that. So we'll have to see. You
Yeah.
can go check right now on Eventbrite if you can still get cheap tickets. Now's the time to go before we go update it.
Yep, but the call for speakers closed, and again, we might be adding a few more sessions. Well, we will be adding a few more sessions, so we're just trying to clarify. I said we've been trying to get a couple of newer speakers. It was really hard to pick. There were so many good sessions. You know, it's really getting hard to pick between them. So
yeah, it's especially hard because we also don't want the conference to be so packed. You don't get time to, talk to each other, socialize, the hallway track.
yeah,
So it's always this. It's so sad when we go in and we're like, "Okay, we have this many sessions a day," and it's always less than we want.
yeah. And I mean, if we could do a week, I'm sure we'd have enough content to fill it up too. But
yeah.
So again, we did mention the first batches of sessions and workshops have been announced. So go check those out on intothebox.org, and we will see you all there. We're excited. I think it'll be a good one. So we're hoping that being in DC, we can get more European travelers to come visit too. We had a few last year from Europe, but getting to Texas down to Houston could be a little tougher. So hopefully we can get more people there.
That's right. And mentioning again, CF Camp 2024, it is June 13th and 14th in Freising in Germany. Call for speakers in the chat. Go put your name in. I love when new people come and speak, and they always have great ideas. So.
Yep, and they'll guide you too. The conference organizers will like to say, "Hey, this is a great talk. If you could add this to it, I think it'll really appeal to everybody and make it better." And if you're willing to do those things, sometimes that's all it needs, just to to get in there. So, but yeah, they've got lots of ideas on that page too. So find something there that you think you can teach somebody something, and trust me, there's always something that you can teach somebody. Everyone can learn something from everybody. So find something and give it a whirl. It's not as scary as you think, Trust me. After getting thrown into it, I'm still talking at conferences, so it can't be that bad. I mean, even Esme does, and she hates speaking in front of people. So Esme can do it. I'm sure you can too. Okay.
All right. Here's the big one.
Yeah, blogs, tweets, and videos. So we got everybody else. Then we'll do the bin corner. We'll try to see if we can get through all bins and keep it under 3 hours.
Yeah, folks. We took a nice holiday break. It was great, and now we're paying for it with I don't know, like at least a dozen blog posts. So we will touch on these. We might not go deep diving in all of these. So we'll make sure the links are in the show notes so you can go read them after.
Yeah, but we already talked about ColdBox 7.2 being released, so that was one of those there. Sorry. Well, I think it was released too, but actually the workshop. So sorry, the ColdBox 7.2 workshop in DC, and so that one there with the early bird pricing, and we already talked about Grant's CB Wire. So his CB Wire post has a lot of the cool features that's included in 3.2. And we talked a little bit about ColdBox Debugger 4.2 as well. So
we'll talk about it more at the end.
Yep. So now we skipped over those we've already sort of touched on. Next up, we have Charlie with a couple of blog posts.
That's right. So first we have new updates released for Java 8, 11, 17, and 21. It's kind of weird to me to have Java have so many version numbers that we're talking about. It's, it was on 8 forever, it felt like, and now.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's that time again. New JVM updates were released. This was on January 16th. And so Charlie's blog post goes into thoughts on those updates and how to get them applied.
Yep. And then the next one he has is just several things to consider when applying JVM updates. So these here, usually Java updates, there's a couple of gotchas or catches, and if you apply it and it doesn't quite work, your server goes down. So you always want to follow through the instructions, and Charlie does do a good, a good breakdown of what you should consider when doing it, what to look for. Do you need to, reapply your configurations again? Because that's usually the biggest thing, right? People lose their web server config, and then all of a sudden they can't connect to their server. So we're looking through it here. He brings down, all these beware of these changes. So there's a lot of stuff happening lately, a lot of security changes. And so with that, a lot of things apply. So again, highly recommend reading through this here. And remember, Oracle releases things a little bit faster than Adobe. So you need to make sure that if you are applying them, that you follow their instructions too. And so usually I always say go to Charlie. He's the one that spends this whole day fixing everybody else's server install problems and update issues and everything else. So he does it for a living. So it's definitely what you should be reading when you're going to do it yourself. And if all else fails, call Charlie. He's very busy, but he's very good at what he does, and he educates as well. He doesn't just fix it and leave you hanging. He'll fix it and then show you what he did, why he did it, and how you can do it yourself in the future. So it's a really big plus with Charlie. He wants to make sure that he's teaching you, not just helping you. So very good. So Ben at our corner. So
I counted. We have 11. 11 blog posts just from Ben. So,
and that doesn't include the Working Code podcast blog post that he puts out too. So it's probably like 15 lately, but it has been about a month. So I guess fair enough.
Yeah. Well, let's group these first two together, I think. They're titled Considering the Ergonomics of Tags and Objects in Cold Fusion and Proof of Concept, CFHTTP with a Retry Policy in Cold Fusion. So the first blog post came out of Ben needing to build a retry mechanism for communicating with an API. And he talks about the CFHTTP tag versus the HTTP component. Which I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about that component. I haven't used it. It kind of has the same reputation as the query component. You'll hear people just, blanket tell you don't use it, and I'm sure there's reasons for that. I don't remember ever getting reasons. I just got don't use it. So I've always used the tag, or at least the tag and script version. But yeah, Ben goes through that and then uses the what he's talked about and makes a wrapper around CFHTTP that can have some retry logic. Not just retry it X times, but has some back off built in. So the idea is if the server fails, maybe you wait 200 milliseconds, then you wait 700, then a second, then 2 seconds, then 4, and then you finally give up. So
yeah,
has some delays built in. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty smart because a lot of times, you make a few calls and then you get that, basically you get a request back saying, oh, nope, sorry, too many requests. And then, they basically slow you down anyway. So this would be a really good feature because it does happen quite a bit. And, it's annoying to have to build that in yourself, have the 3 levels deep of your catches or whatnot.
That's right.
For it. So anytime you can build it into a topic. Now, does Hyper have retries?
It doesn't. That was the first thing I thought of when he brought these up. Ben also talked, I think it was in the first one, about do you build something that's tries to be generic for everything, which is Hyper, or specific to what you're doing, and it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I will say Ben asked for, or I should say wished for, a listener, kind of like the Lucy query listener. So in Lucy, I believe it was added in 6. Maybe it came back to 5 in some release, but you can have a before and an after listener on every query. So you can get the SQL in, you can introspect it, you can do timing between before and afters, things like that. And he was wishing there was something like that for HTTP requests. And Hyper does provide that in cold box applications where you can have listener. Well, in non-cold box applications too, where you can have request and response listeners and execute on them. in a cold box application, you also get interception points, so you can even be more decoupled. But I've used that before with dealing with APIs, and I wanted to kind of transform the response into something or provide better error messages. I'll put a response listener on. I
I
don't
think you helped me
remember
with
what
that
they're
one
called.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
definitely helpful
so
when you get weird stuff back from them, because sometimes you get JSON, sometimes you get a block of text saying what you did wrong, or it's nice to be able to handle it in one place instead of having to do it on every single request you make. So,
right.
yeah.
And again, with Hyper, you could always build up a client that is specific to what you're dealing with. So I'm trying to find that actually what it's called. Response callbacks and request callbacks. That's what they're called. You can have multiple. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, obviously I thought of Hyper as I read through these, but I'm kind of biased in that regard. So
Yep. The next one, he talked about following up on error handling during async iteration in Cold Fusion. And so that one, it can be really painful dealing with async stuff. I mean, I don't do a lot of it, and I know that, yeah, that we built a lot into Cold Box to try and make our life easier now, right? Because there's so many things when you're wrapping it in async, just things are just
yeah,
different.
so this was interesting. It was specifically looking at the parallel iterators that have been built into Lucy and Adobe Cold Fusion, like an each map filter, where you can split that across a number of threads that you provide. And very nice, right? Because that's usually where you're looking to do some parallel work is you're like, I'm looping through all these things. And the thing to look out for, which Ben points out here, is Lucy and Adobe have different semantics in dealing with that. Where Lucy will, when they encounters an error, will stop um, looping through that result, right? So if you have 100 items and in the first 10 you encounter an error, Lucy's going to stop. Anything that's currently executed will finish because that's how threads work. You don't really kill them, but nothing else will go. Whereas for Adobe in Cold Fusion 2023, it lets everything through, and the ones that fail, and the ones that don't. And so something to be aware of regardless, but it did make me think of how, I don't know, I've helped give the workshop that Ortis does on async programming and the async services that we've built in the cold box. And they're quite complicated, built on top of Java's futures. And the reason is to give you control over situations like this. Maybe you want to have a fire and forget, and you don't care if it finishes. Maybe you do want the first error to throw everything and stop going through. And with Lucy and Adobe here using their built-in iterators, you can't choose that. Jumping down into completable futures and cold boxes async manager, you can choose that behavior. So yeah, I guess the thing I got from reading this was I see why it is so complicated and why there's all these different concepts to learn around it and why that's useful. So
Yep. Then they say when, I guess it's just like regex, you add regex, now you got two problems. Same thing with async. Yeah.
so
There's
so
some.
yeah. So two things. One, know the difference between Lucy and Adobe here and know which one that you're getting when you use parallel iterators. And two, if you want more control over it, Coldbox has a lot of nice ergonomic helpers around that for using Java's really powerful future API.
Cool. Well, the next one we'll sort of skip over a little bit, but Ben was recommended by Alex Skinner to look into Cloudflare's turnstile instead of the reCAPTCHA from Google, because sometimes Google's reCAPTCHA doesn't block as much as you think it should. And everyone seems to love Cloudflare these days, and so he jumped into using that. So that's actually a good idea, because yeah, people don't like Google so much sometimes with their policies, and the reCAPTCHA isn't as good at blocking stuff as it used to be. I swear, AI is getting really good at identifying pitches, but I can't, like identify the signs here, or the
I
the
hate
stairs. I
those.
can't figure it out, but I'm sure robots can way better than me, and that's why it's not working so good. but anyway, so if you wanted to jump to that, Cloudflare's got a lot of great offerings, and so Turnstile is their recapture offering. So link is posted. Oh, and then yeah, this one's an interesting one. He talked about all his email jobs and the Working Code podcast. He was talking with Adam, because Adam Tattle does a lot of work with sending email. He's got a lot of university clients that send out a lot of mail, and so Ben was trying to figure out the best way to send 7 million emails in 5 days using Cold Fusion.
So do you? I missed this in this thing. What was the use case for needing to send 7 million emails?
Well, I mean, they've just got millions and millions and millions of clients, and I can't remember it from the podcast because I listened to it early in December what it was exactly, but I know that they have a lot of notifications and everything, so I'm not sure if it was just the. It was just
Yeah,
a
it didn't
use
seem to
case.
be a notification thing because he said he needed to send it to every user that they had. That was the 7 million. So, anyways,
I thought it
I
was
should go listen to the podcast. But
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I assume it's like policy update or security one, something like that, where yeah, you just need to send it out to everybody, and I can't remember exactly. I don't want to guess and be massively wrong, but
yeah.
yeah. So, and again, there's services for that, but when you're sending 7 million emails and that quick, that adds up very quickly. So that's why people do different things.
It
But yeah,
probably adds up, but also like you read through what Ben went through to get this done, and like I will pay MailChimp or whatever newsletter thing I need to do. That's why they exist. And in the end, he's still using Postmark because you can't run your own email server. If he had tried to do this just from, the Envision domain servers, like they'd be marked as spam immediately because it is all reputation. And if you're thinking of doing that, like I have a home server and you try to send an email, nobody's going to take it. They don't know who you are. And it's just, so yeah, there's plenty of people to pay to do this because this is a hard problem.
yep.
So,
And that Working Code podcast, Adam talks about what he does with step functions and inside of AWS and everything too. So they use that sort of approach. So yeah, check that one out. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting problem, and yeah, like you said, the deliverability is king, and you want to make sure you're using those tools. And some of those places even tell you like, hey, you can only send so many per second, and that's probably why he's talking about time boxing later on, right? Because there's another one where he's talking about max, because Adam Tattles basically was saying when they were sending stuff, they could only send so many thousand per certain window, so they basically checked to see if how many they'd sent, and then the job would just wait until the time span was open so they could see how many more they could send in the next block and keep processing, because otherwise their provider will stop them too. So even those big providers don't want to have their reputation get down the drain by letting you send too much, so they still monitor and maintain your list. So
right. And I mean, it makes sense if you can think of somebody, signing up for Postmark and then trying to spam a whole bunch of people. Like Postmark doesn't want their name to be connected to, hey, we let people send spam through us. So like it's tough. I'm glad that's not my business.
Yep.
The next couple blog posts kind of go along with this email sending. So the first one was consuming a large configuration file inside a Cold Fusion component. So as part of sending all these emails, they wanted to filter out emails that were from temporary domains, or sorry, that's not the right word, like disposable email address domains. There's places where you can go and just be like, I want an email and I'm going to throw this away. I just need to get it for, the code they're sending me, or because this website's making me. And so they don't want to send things there, right? That's just going to bounce. And I guess there was a list, a GitHub repository that has like 3,000 plus disposable email address domains. And so this blog post goes through how Ben decided to bring that configuration file in, and he puts it in a component that then he has methods that can interact with that and the data he passes in to determine if the email addresses are from a disposable domain or a disposable email address itself. So pretty neat. And then the next one he talks about was per application mappings to alias that file inside your application CFC. So they're all connected there.
Yep. And then he also the time boxing one too. So that one again touches back on the email. They can only send you run job every 5 minutes to try to basically pick up and continue where it left off, and so there's all sorts of logic that goes into seeing if it's still running or not, and if it's not running, then you can proceed, or vice versa, because you never want to have two jobs running at the same time, etc. So when you're processing 7 million emails, that's a lot of looping. So
Yeah.
I'll let you
This is
jump to that
another
one.
one that made me think of, futures and completable futures. I mean, one thing to think about is as long as your job is running, like he has this run until function that takes an operator, and as long as that operator is running, you can't really short circuit it. Um, you can do a bit more in using an actual future API, like you can give timeouts. There are ways to try to kill threads, but again, that's not guaranteed. But yeah, if you're looking for things like this, I highly encourage looking into ColdBox's async engine. There's lots of these tools already built in for when you need to run a task but kill it if it's taking too long, or even just not keep going. Return to the user and tell them, something's going wrong, or this is going to take a while. So
Yep, for sure. Okay, so next up, we got one about email content using pure templates in Cold Fusion. And so that's basically using a view, right? Like pulling all your logic out using a view, sort of more
yeah,
of an MVC approach for email, and keeping your email templates just as templates. And so yeah, that's pretty common MVC pattern there. And CD
I,
Mail Services allows you to do that really nicely. We have tokens set up and everything. It's pretty cool. But if you want
yeah.
to dive into that, you can look at his approach there.
I think that's especially important when you try to get into styling emails, because
Oh
email
yeah.
styling is still a nightmare, and you end up using tools to generate weird looking HTML, and you just want to stick that in a folder and pass in the data you need instead of trying to make it each time.
Yeah, and if you are using script for your logic and everything else, you don't want to try to have that block of HTML stuff inside your script tags. Put them in a CFM file and render it that way. It's definitely easier. Okay, this is one that you mentioned was relevant for WebSockets. So generating secure URL signatures to prevent tampering in Cold Fusion. So
Yeah, webhooks
oh,
is
webhook.
is
Sorry.
the one. Yeah. So the idea here is, in addition to giving a URL, you put a signature on it. And how'd you get that signature? Well, the URL itself plus the secret you have. And so, if you've dealt with webhooks from Stripe, from Amazon, from Twilio, from all these different places that call your code, they'll include a header or sometimes a query param, but usually a header with this signature value. And it's up to you to go through all the steps using your secret key that they've given you, all the parameters and the path and all that, and say, I should get the same result. And if I do, then I can trust this. If not, then somebody's messed with this.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see, talking about generating your own URLs, because again, I've only really used it from verifying others. I think all of us, not all of us, sorry, but a lot of us have probably used in like the S3 SDK or the AWS library. There's a signature verifier built in. You have to compute every time you want to talk to S3. So
Yeah.
maybe you didn't even know you were using it, but these signatures are very common.
Yep, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get it to work right too sometimes. That's why I use the library
Yes, it
that has one.
is.
I know when they changed the signature version from 3 to 4, it messed up some stuff pretty good.
Yes.
But yeah, but yeah, I thought it was a cool idea. I mean, definitely, you
Yeah.
know,
I like seeing the idea, thinking, oh yeah, you might want this for your own website, You might want to provide a link that you can verify nobody's changed anything.
yeah.
And this is a great way to do it. It's the same way you're going to do it if you're verifying someone else's, but yeah, I love the walkthrough.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like JWTs for anyone who hasn't used them. Basically you have the token itself, the contents of it and the key, and basically if somebody changes something in it, instantly it's not valid because the contents were changed. So if you got a URL and someone's messing with the ID of the user to try to get, to see somebody else's data, the URL signature is going to say, well, that's not the same thing that we encrypt, we hashed or whatever to make sure it's safe. So it's definitely a cool thing to use. And I'm like, that would be useful on a lot more things, like just something like as simple as file links. Sometimes you have to add all this extra security. If you had a link in there and the signature for a file you're on, then we could change it and try to look for other files. But yep. Anyways.
Yeah.
So last but not least, we've got one saying always identify your calling service within HTTP usage agent header.
I think that's supposed to be user agent because that's what he talks about inside his
user
blog
agent
post.
header.
So yeah, user agent.
So I'll copy that one properly. But
no, it's wrong on his title too.
okay.
So I think so. Yeah. So Ben goes through what his was moving from a service called Pingdom and to New Relic. I have seen this one in some APIs. If you don't include the user agent, just fail. Like they'll tell you either they'll just not serve your request. Some APIs I've hit without user agent on accident, like it doesn't even get an API response back. If I'm asking for JSON, I just get this weird HTML page. So yeah, you want to make sure when you're sending the HTTP request that you have a user agent built in. I know Hyper has a default one. It sends that it's from a Hyper request, and you can change that if you want. But that bit me enough times that I needed to build that one in.
Yeah, this is interesting too. So in this example here, there's an uptime bot, user agent, and then he has an x-uptime bot with more information, so the account ID and how to adjust the monitors with the URL. So that's like a secondary level. So based on the value of the user agent, there's an additional header you can add. So that's kind of interesting. I like that because sometimes you're like, where is this coming from? Which account is hitting me? Because sometimes you get those types of pings and you're like, I can't find which account this one's in. And so sometimes that's kind of useful. So I didn't think about doing the second line of information. But yeah. So that's...
I feel like it's also a good note here that while you do want to have a user agent sniffing is not a great idea when you're doing like feature detection. So
yeah, people can definitely
side note there.
fake that.
They can put whatever user agent they want. So
yeah, and a lot of times you'll see that in your spam, you'll see some weird stuff, and it's like, I'm pretty sure that's not accurate. But yeah, that's another thing to filter on too when you're looking at error logs and stuff as well. Because sometimes you get those weird, search engines just crawling your site and causing a bunch of errors, and they're not real errors. So
I actually have to take it back. What I said earlier, Hyper does not have a default user agent, so should look into that one.
Yeah, probably should be a little minor patch update there, little security. Although I wonder if anyone's gonna break anything with that. But yeah, I think it'd be a good thing to add for sure.
Probably, as long as it's the default, right? No, I mean that's the problem with some of these libraries is. It's where it's the XKCD post, right? About spacebar overheating. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one.
I'll pull it up and yeah, it's great.
Okay, well, you pull that up. I'm gonna look at find a job. So we have CFML jobs section here, and there's been about 4 jobs listed over the last few weeks at getcfmljobs.com. So I'm gonna pull that up just so we can watch as we go. So you'll see there's been a few posted lately. So 117 positions from 70 companies across 48 locations in 5 countries. So we have about 4 since the start of the year. So we've got a web developer, Cold Fusion at remote. We've got a senior technical lead, Cold Fusion at remote. And we have a senior Cold Fusion developer at remote. These couple of these might be the same, just different locations. We also have a software engineering manager remote at Fort Worth. So again, if you're looking for jobs, it's a great place to come look for them. If you're wanting to post, you can actually post the jobs here completely free. This does scrape some other job sites as well, so you can usually be pretty sure that anything with Cold Fusion in it, and sometimes even Cold Fusion with a space, gets pulled up in here. So it scrapes for all those jobs. But let's have a quick look here. So we've got 4 jobs. Let's see if they're all the same or different. This one's working for M3 USA. And so Cold Fusion SQL with some React as well. And this one here is for RIS, so WRIS. They're actually a sponsor for Into the Box in the previous year, so a good company. They got some. So they're looking for someone with Cold Fusion, MS SQL, MySQL, the MVC frameworks like ColdBox, Framework 1, CF Wheels, and some Docker's a plus. Docker's always a plus. So I like this though. The design, they want someone with a good sense of humor and comfortable working remotely. So very cool. Quantum World. So there's another one here. And then we have Batesville LLC. So yeah, so there's 4 separate jobs there. So if you guys are looking, lots of good options there. So go to getcfmljobs.com and look for a job. And again, if you are looking, check out the Slack channels as well. We have some on the CFML Slack team and the Box Slack team. There are a channel there for jobs. So Eric has found the KCD. So let me open this up.
I think about this one so often whenever I'm doing module versions, because the question is always, is this a breaking change or is this just a bug fix or an improvement? And I think this comic accurately captures it. Do we read it on air? Anybody
Yeah,
watching
sure.
is going to get it, but
yeah, I guess we should. So changes in version 10.17. The CPU no longer overheats when you hold down the spacebar. In the comments, what do they say, Eric?
The longtime user 4 writes, this update broke my workflow. My control key is hard to reach, so I hold spacebar instead, and I configured Emacs to interpret a rapid temperature rise as control. To which the admin writes, that's horrifying. And the user responds, look, my setup works for me. Just add an option to re-enable spacebar heating. so
That
yeah.
is
So
pretty crazy, but
with
yeah,
Hyper, if I add a user agent, is it going to break someone's code? It's
it's possible.
arguably a feature that should be added so that we don't have, requests going out without user agents, but it's going to mess somebody up somewhere. So you should just make everything a major version, right?
Yeah. Obviously, we can add a header for user agent. Is there a helper for set user agent just for make it simple?
I don't know if there is a one on its own or if
Yeah.
it's just
I mean, obviously, like
the
I said,
header.
you can
No,
change it
it's
with a
just
header, but
it's just with headers. But
yeah,
we definitely could.
yeah, like those little
So,
things are just helpful.
yeah.
More readable too for those people trying to learn how to use it. Okay, well, that wraps up the job section and the KCD fun. So next up, let's talk about the ForgeBox module of the week. And as we mentioned before, it's CB Debugger. So
Yeah, we're gonna take you in a little more of a deep dive this time in this section. So what's new with CB Debugger 4.2? Honestly, the biggest one is new docs. It's moved over to a Git book. You have great docs going through all the different collectors. That's kind of the panels, things that you can learn from a request. New in this one, we have the hyper collector that you can enable, log response or request. You can control all of those. It will show you how long it took and the body of either the request or the response coming back. The Lucy SQL collector, note that if you do want that one, you need to make sure your Lucy server is in debug mode. You can easily add that to CFconfig or go into the debugging panel in the Lucy admin. Heap dump support, you can create a Java heap dump. Again, great for debugging memory leaks or just seeing how your system is handling the loads. The request docs cleaned up a bit, so now you can see just the request, the current request information. All the rest is in the visualizer at the CB debugger entry point. So when you click on the doc, it will expand, show you all the different stuff about the request that you're looking for. We put some improvements into the SQL and the JSON formatting so that they're nice and formatted in the panels, and you can copy them easily with this little clipboard icon. And finally, using the timer object, you can add your own timers in. That will show up in that request panel. You can either do that by asking for the timer, injecting it, or using delegates, which is super fun.
Yep.
So yeah,
So
lots of awesome stuff.
I've been showing some of the docs and the outputs of what shows up on there. And yeah, it's definitely, I really like the fact that when you're doing API calls, you can still get to it, because an API call is behind the scenes and you can't use the debug that spits out on the bottom of the page like a lot of people used to working in the old days. And so the debug mode, you can just basically turn it on with a secret key, and then
Yeah,
the interceptors too. So this is
I
pretty
believe
cool.
that's it. Then the CB debugger endpoint that I mentioned is that's where you can see every request that's coming in. You can set it to auto refresh so you can see the new requests coming in.
Yep.
And yeah, super awesome.
Yep. And it's pretty easy to install, and then you just configure the pieces that you want. So if you're not using certain things, just turn them on or off. And like this here, we can basically go and add the different modules. So it comes with a couple of them by default, and you just add the other collectors as you want. So again, choose ones you want there, and it's just really neat. I really like it, and I said it's basically like having a mini fusion reactor in there, and it's nice. And there's more features. I can't believe some of the things we're adding into it. It's going to be really nice to see what gets added next. If there's something you think it would save your life debugging wise, or just like in your process, let us know. We can try and get that added too, because that's the key. Is we always want to keep improving it. So
Yeah. So one you probably didn't get to see yet, but I don't know when this was added. There's this object methods, and this one really shines. Just using metadata, you can add a profile metadata key to either a component or a method, and you're going to get timing information in your debug timer panels just for that. So like you can think like, what's taking so long in this execution? You throw this profile on the component, and now you're going to get a breakdown of every method in there. So if you got nice small method, you're going to be able to see what is taking so long in each of these. So just
yep.
with a single profile annotation, I will be the first to admit that I do this usually by wrapping things in some, function I threw in the request scope, or like doing timing, and this is so much easier. So
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, you're using so much of your own debugging tricks, but this does have a lot of stuff in there for you just to be able to pull from, and saving you having to go and like dump out what's in the RC scope right now, what's in the PRC scope. You can see it all right there, and it's nice to see the timings on different things, and you can see over time too, so you can keep that up. So maybe there's one every once in a while that gets way bigger. You can like, why is that one taking so long when the others didn't? So yep, great little module. And of course, it's great in environments, development, staging. You probably don't want it on in production, because it does do extra work depending what you have turned on. So if you do have it on, make sure you trim down what you have on using environments. But yeah, it's really, really helpful tool. And the cool thing is, if you needed to turn it on in production, you could just for a second just to get some data, and then turn it back off and go from there. And now they do have the improved export, right? Or it's a dump support. But don't we have an export? Yeah, you can export the profiler and stuff in JSON. So I wonder what they're going to use that for. Maybe there's another feature coming soon that will be using that more extensively. So very cool. Okay, next up, we have VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. And this one here, it's something which you might have heard about in the news lately, because Figma has been in the news quite a lot lately, because Adobe was buying them for, what was the price that the merger was going to be for? Isn't it 64 billion or something stupid? Or is it more than that? It was a lot. But
we'll find out. 20
yeah,
billion,
20 billion.
half cash, half stock.
And the crazy thing is that eventually the monopoly sort of lawsuit stopped it right at the end of, was it?
They were facing regulatory scrutiny in both the United States and over in the EU, and they backed out, to the tune of $1 billion paid to Figma for backing out.
So that's a pretty good deal. Figma got $1 billion for not being bought out. And so everyone in the world is rejoicing, because everyone loved Figma and they're worried Adobe might kill it. And that's probably why it got shut down, that you couldn't buy your competition just to shut them down. But the cool thing is that since Figma is still alive, we've got this Figma for VS Code tool. So it allows you to bring Figma straight into your text editor. You can inspect designs, receive notifications, and get code suggestions. So the coolest thing about all of this is that if you actually scroll down, not only can you just put something else in VS Code, because you can put everything in there now, spreadsheets and databases and everything else, but apart from seeing and responding to comments and activity in real time, which is useful, I think the next one is where it really wins. You can get code suggestions based on designs. So you stay in the flow, stay more productive than ever, because you get auto completions on your code. So if you're actually in a design and you can pull across, let me zoom in here just so you can see a little better. If I can. But it'll auto complete based on the styles from Figma. So if you're working on a cart button, you click on it and then you come over and actually throw that in there. It'll auto complete based on what you're doing. And you can say, just grab this or just grab that, or grab all the CSS. So I think that's a pretty big win there. So if your CSS designs, or your Figma designs are there, you can pull them in and then just pull the styles right from that. So if the designer does a good job, it can auto translate it into VS Code so you can use it. You can download your assets to your repo with a single click, which is pretty cool. And then, you select your layer on your designs and it'll appear. It's pretty neat. And then you can also link your code files to design components. And so that way they can easily review as well. So kind of cool that you can jump right in there. But I'm just thinking for those that design a workflow that, the autocomplete and just the information here is just, going to be really valuable. Instead of having to have it open up somewhere else or have somebody doing that process of converting everything from Figma into style sheets for you, you can do some of that yourself now. So I thought that was a big win.
Very curious. I know that there's so I'm a big Tailwind CSS stan, and I know there's ways to put your Tailwind configuration inside Figma, so that then Figma's using all those values, they go the same. I'm wondering if this pull out the values works with that too, because I'd be interested in that, obviously. So
yeah, if it throws into the class of the element instead of into the style sheet. Yeah,
it's interesting.
It is a beta, so it was released middle of last year, and it has had updates through December last year. So it's still something that's out there, and they're working on it. I'm not sure if they're going to have new updates coming soon or not, but if you use Figma, it sounds like a pretty cool tool to try out and try with your stuff.
And now sticking around for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a big one, I think. I was curious though, because I know that Adobe killed XD or whatever, and a couple other tools, and everyone was thinking they were doing that because they were getting Figma. So I wonder what Adobe will do in that space, or if there's something else they've got that fills the gap. But anyway, so our VS Code tip trick of the week is Figma for VS Code. So try it out, and if you guys have success, let us know what you think of it. I'm kind of curious. Don't have much Figma stuff myself. We have other designy people do the front end most of the time, so not my job. But let's get back to the final part of the show where we thank all our Patreon supporters, because without them we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you very much. And again, without them we wouldn't be able to do all the great things we do for the community, or we think it's great to give to the community by doing CommandBox, ForgeBox, CodeBox, ContentBox, TestBox, all these other tools, ForgeBox with package management and everything else. So it does help us do a lot of great things, and these people are personally supporting us, so we're really appreciative of that. So you want to roll through the top Patreons here?
I sure do. Let's see. So these are our staunch Patreons. Thank you to John Wilson with Synaptrix, Tomorrow's Guides, Jordan Clark, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, David Bellinger, Dan Card, James Moberg and Jeffrey McGee with Sunstar Media, Dean Monder, Kevin Wright, Doug Kane, Nolan Irk, and Abdul Raheen. And also thank you to our many more Patreons on our site. You can see an up-to-date list on ortusolutions.com/about-us/sponsors.
Yep. So thanks everybody for joining us. I know it's been a while, so welcome back from your holidays, and hopefully we'll be on a more regular schedule every 2 weeks. So we'll see you in a couple weeks, guys.
See ya.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.